The Forgotten Guardian. The SSV Resilient hung in orbit around New Eden Colony, sunlight gleaming off its massive titanium hull. Once the pride of Earth's space fleet, the 200-year-old warship now served as a floating museum, a relic from the first expansion era when humanity had first ventured beyond Sol's system. Commander Elena Reyes stood at the viewport of the observation deck, watching as the last tourists of the day filed toward the exit shuttles. At 48, her posture remained military straight, despite having left active service 7 years ago. Her close-cropped salt and pepper hair and keen eyes belonged to someone who had spent more time in Zero than planetside, and her museum director's uniform, though civilian, was always impeccably pressed. "Another successful day, Commander," said Dr. Marcus Chen, joining her at the viewport. As the ship's historian and Elena's second-in-command, Marcus had transformed the Resilient's cavernous interior into immersive exhibits that drew visitors from across human space. "Attendance is up 12% this quarter," Elena noted, eyes still fixed on New Eden's blue-green surface below. "The special exhibition on the Battle of Proxima Centauri is proving popular. People are drawn to stories of triumph against impossible odds," Marcus replied, adjusting his glasses. "There's something compelling about how those ancient fusion drives and primitive rail guns managed to defeat the Centauri separatists despite being outgunned." Elena nodded, although her attention had drifted to the ship itself. The Resilient had been decommissioned after the Unification Wars, its weapons systems dismantled and its military hardware converted to educational displays. Yet sometimes, when she walked the corridors at night, Elena could almost feel the old warship humming with phantom energy, as if remembering what it once was. "Last shuttle's departing, Commander," announced Ling Wei, the operations coordinator, over the comms. "All visitors accounted for. Staff dinner at 1900 hours in the mess hall." "I'll be there," Elena replied. After Marcus departed, Elena made her way down to the engineering section where Rajiv Patel, the chief engineer, knelt beside an exposed panel, his hands buried in a tangle of wires. "Working late again?" she asked. Rajiv startled slightly, then chuckled when he saw her. "Just running diagnostics on the original propulsion systems. Most of them still work, you know. The weapons were decommissioned, but the engines, life support, navigation, they built these ships to last." Elena smiled. Rajiv had served on cruisers similar to the Resilient in his youth and treated the old systems with a reverence that bordered on religious. He was the reason why the artificial gravity never fluctuated, why the temperature controls remained perfect, why the ancient hull integrity sensors still reported status every morning. "The modern fleet could learn something from these old designs," Rajiv continued. "Today's ships rely too heavily on quantum shielding and AI targeting. One good electromagnetic pulse, and half their systems fail. These old girls," he patted the bulkhead affectionately, "pure mechanical genius. Redundant systems for the redundant systems. Let's hope they never need to put that to the test," Elena said. Later that night, after dinner with her 20-person crew, Elena sat in her quarters reviewing maintenance schedules when a priority alert chimed. The face of Admiral Haruki Tanaka, New Eden Defense Force, appeared on her screen, his expression grave. "Commander Reyes, this is not a drill. We've detected multiple unidentified vessels entering the system. They're not responding to hails." Elena felt her stomach tighten. "Pirates?" "Negative. These are unlike anything we've encountered." Tanaka's image briefly made way for tactical displays showing sleek obsidian shapes moving with impossible precision. "They've already disabled our convoys at the system edge. We're classifying this as a first contact scenario, potentially hostile." "What can we do to help?" Elena asked, military instincts already assessing options for a museum ship with no weapons. "For now, maintain your position. We may need to use the Resilient as a temporary evacuation center if things go south. I'll update you as the situation develops." When the transmission ended, Elena initiated the ship-wide communication system. "All staff, this is Commander Reyes. Report to the command deck immediately. Within minutes, her 20 crew members had gathered. Engineers, historians, maintenance workers, and tour guides, none of them current military personnel, but many with service backgrounds. Elena explained the situation clearly with the limited information available. The Resilient may be called upon to serve again, not as a warship, but as a sanctuary, she concluded. I need everyone ready. For 3 days, they watched as reports trickled in. The unidentified vessels, now identified as belonging to something calling itself the Voidborn Collective, had bypassed the outer defense platforms and methodically begun attacking outlying settlements. The Colonial Defense Fleet responded, but the news grew worse with each passing hour. On the 4th day, they'd witnessed the war firsthand. A damaged human transport limped into New Eden's orbit, its hull breached in multiple sections. Elena established emergency communications. They appeared from nowhere, the transport's captain reported, his face ashen. Our shields meant nothing to their weapons. It's like they can predict our movements before we make them. More ships arrived as the day progressed, mostly civilian vessels packed with refugees. New Eden's orbital platforms quickly became overwhelmed. Admiral Tanaka contacted Elena again. We're sending evacuation ships your way. The Resilient has a stable orbit, and your life support systems can handle additional people. Prepare to receive civilians. Within hours, the quiet museum ship transformed into a chaotic refugee center. Hundreds of frightened colonists filed aboard, many carrying nothing but the clothes they wore. Elena's crew worked tirelessly, converting exhibition spaces into temporary living quarters. Rajiv approached her during a rare quiet moment. Commander, I've been checking the old propulsion systems. If we needed to move the Resilient, we could. Elena looked at him sharply. The ship is supposed to be permanently anchored in orbit. That was a management decision, not a technical limitation. The main engines are inactive but preserved. They could be brought online. How quickly? A few hours, maybe less. Elena considered this information carefully. Let's hope it doesn't come to that. But the next morning, it did. She was awakened by alarms blaring throughout the ship. Rushing to the command deck, she found Wei looking pale. Voidborn ships have entered New Eden orbit, Wei reported. The Colonial Defense Fleet is engaging, but they're outnumbered. Through the viewports, Elena could see flashes of light in the distance, the unmistakable sign of space combat. New Eden's modest defense force was fighting, but reports suggested they were already taking heavy losses. Admiral Tanaka's face appeared on the main screen, now showing signs of exhaustion and stress. Commander Reyes, we're initiating full planetary evacuation. The Resilient is to join the civilian convoy that will attempt to reach the jump point. Admiral, we're a museum ship. We have no weapons, minimal shields. You have thick hull plating from an era when ships couldn't rely on energy shields, Tanaka interrupted. And right now, that might be more valuable than you think. The Voidborn weapons are cutting through our modern shielding like it isn't there. He took a deep breath. Elena, I know what I'm asking, but those people on your ship need a chance to escape. After the transmission ended, Elena turned to her crew. Their faces showed fear, but also determination. Rajiv, she said quietly, start the engines. Deep within the Resilient, machinery that had been silent for decades began to hum and vibrate. Elena gripped the railing on the command deck as the old warship shuddered around her. Engine output at 60% and climbing, reported Rajiv from engineering. The old girl remembers how to fly. Through the main viewport, Elena watched as New Eden grew smaller. All around them, civilian ships of various sizes formed a ragged convoy. Cargo vessels packed with refugees, private yachts, even modified mining ships. Every vessel capable of spaceflight had been pressed into service. Incoming transmission from Fleet Command, called Wei from Communications. The stern face of Admiral Hiroshi Katsumoto appeared on the main screen. Unlike Tanaka, whom Elena had known personally, Katsumoto was a stranger, a high-ranking officer from the Central Worlds who had arrived with reinforcements only hours ago. "Commander Reyes," he said without preamble, "I've reviewed your ship's specifications. The Resilient may be old, but its hull integrity exceeds many of our modern vessels. Your new orders are to position your ship at the rear of the civilian convoy and act as a shield against pursuing forces." Elena frowned. "Admiral, we have over 600 civilians aboard. We're a museum ship with no active weapon systems." Katsumoto's expression didn't change. "I'm activating emergency protocols to recommission all museum ships across human space. We're facing an enemy with technology we cannot match. Our modern ships are failing." He paused, his voice growing quieter. "Sometimes to move forward, we must look back. Position your ship as ordered, Commander." Katsumoto out. The screen went dark before Elena could respond. "He can't be serious," Marcus said from beside her. "We can barely maneuver, let alone fight." Elena stared at the blank screen for a moment longer. "We don't need to fight. Just position ourselves between the civilians and any pursuit." She turned to Y at the navigation station. "Adjust our course. Take us to the rear of the convoy." As the Resilient slowly changed position, Elena felt the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. They were no longer just preserving history. They were living it. Ancient weapons, modern war. As the Resilient took position at the rear of the civilian convoy, Elena made her way down to engineering. The section buzzed with activity as Rajiv and his team moved purposefully among machinery that hadn't been fully operational in decades. "How are we doing?" Elena asked. Rajiv wiped sweat from his forehead. "Better than expected. Propulsion systems are stable. Life support is handling the extra load. But..." He hesitated. "But what?" Elena prompted. A new voice answered from behind a bank of equipment. "But we could be doing a lot more." Sofia Novak, Rajiv's deputy engineer, stepped into view. At 35, she had the perpetually stained hands of someone who lived among machines. Unlike Rajiv, who had served on military vessels, Sofia's background was in archaeological engineering, preserving and understanding ancient technology. "What do you mean?" Elena asked. Sofia and Rajiv exchanged glances. After a moment, Rajiv nodded slightly. "Commander," Sofia said, lowering her voice, "I need to show you something." She led Elena through a narrow maintenance corridor to a section marked as storage on the museum maps. Inside, however, was no ordinary storage room. The space was filled with equipment, old components and systems that Elena recognized from her military studies. "What is this?" she demanded. Sofia took a deep breath. When they decommissioned the Resilient, they were supposed to remove or disable all military systems. But some of us, we thought it was wrong to gut such a magnificent vessel. She gestured around the room. So we preserved what we could, kept it maintained, off the books. Elena's mind raced. "Are you saying the Resilient isn't completely defenseless?" Sofia nodded. "We have functioning point defense systems. Some of the smaller rail guns could be brought online within hours. The main reactor can operate at full military capacity, not just the reduced output needed for a museum." Elena stared at her in shock. "That's against every regulation in the Federation. You could have been imprisoned for this." "I know," Sofia replied solemnly. "But we never intended to use any of it. It was about preservation, about respect for what this ship once was." Before Elena could respond, her communication device buzzed. "Commander to the command deck." Immediately came Wei's urgent voice. When Elena arrived back on the command deck, the atmosphere had changed. The crew's earlier nervous energy had transformed into something closer to fear. "Voidborne vessels approaching from behind," Wei reported. 3 ships moving fast. They'll intercept the rear of our convoy in 15 minutes. Through the rear viewports, Elena could see them. Sleek, dark ships with an alien design that seemed to absorb rather than reflect light. They moved with a precision the human ships couldn't match. "The defense fleet?" she asked. "Engaged elsewhere. We're on our own." Elena made her decision. Sophia, she called over the ship's communication system. Bring those systems online. All of them. Over the next 10 minutes, the Resilient transformed. Systems that had been dormant for decades awakened. Weapon ports that had been welded shut for museum display were forced open. The ship's power signature changed as the reactor output increased. The civilian ships are accelerating, but the smaller vessels can't outrun the Voidborn, reported Wei from navigation. Put us between them and the pursuit, Elena ordered. All non-essential personnel to emergency stations. As the Resilient moved into position, Elena addressed her crew over the shipwide system. This is Commander Reyes. We are about to engage hostile forces. I know none of you signed up for this. You're historians, engineers, and guides, not soldiers. But right now, we're all that stands between 600 civilians and the enemy. The Resilient remembers how to fight, even if we don't. Trust in this ship. Trust in each other. The first Voidborn attack came swiftly, a beam of energy unlike anything Elena had ever seen slice through space toward the rearmost civilian transport. Evasive action, she called, but knew they couldn't move the massive Resilient quickly enough. Instead, Sophia acted. Ancient point defense systems fired, sending a cloud of metallic particles into the path of the beam. When the energy hit the cloud, it scattered, diffusing enough that when it reached the Resilient, it merely scorched the hull rather than cutting through. How did you know that would work? Elena asked, amazed. Sophia's voice came back over the communication system. I didn't, but these old systems were designed to counter a wide range of weapons. Sometimes old solutions work on new problems. The Voidborn ships adjusted their approach, spreading out to target the Resilient specifically. They seemed surprised by the resistance. Wei observed. They're coming around for another pass, targeting our engines. Elena looked around at her crew. Museum workers and historians now manning battle stations. Marcus was helping coordinate damage control teams. Wei was calculating evasive patterns based on old military manuals. Even the gift shop manager was passing ammunition to the hastily reactivated defensive gun stations. Bring the rail guns online, Elena ordered. Target the lead Voidborn vessel. The ancient weapons of the Resilient roared to life. Simple, brutal kinetic projectiles, technology that predated energy shields and quantum defenses, shot toward the approaching enemy. The Voidborn ship adjusted its course slightly, clearly expecting the primitive weapons to be easily deflected by its advanced shields. But something unexpected happened. The projectiles passed through the Voidborn shields as if they weren't there, slamming into the alien vessel's hull. A moment of stunned silence fell over the command deck. Direct hit, Sophia reported, her voice filled with disbelief. They're shields. They're designed to stop energy weapons, not physical projectiles. Elena gripped the command rail tightly. The Resilient has joined the war, she said quietly, and it seems the enemy wasn't ready for her. The damaged Voidborn ship veered away, trailing debris and atmosphere. The other two enemy vessels held position at a distance, seemingly reassessing their approach. They didn't expect that, Elena said, allowing herself a moment of satisfaction. They've never fought a ship like the Resilient before. The command deck hummed with nervous energy as the crew adjusted to their unexpected role as combatants. At the communication station, Wei worked with focused intensity. Commander, I'm picking up transmissions between the Voidborn ships, she reported. They're using standard frequencies, probably assuming we can't understand their language. Can we? Not exactly, but their communication patterns suggest they're coordinating for another attack. Based on the signal strength and timing, I think they'll come at us from multiple angles this time. Elena nodded. Relay that to weapons control. In what had once been the weapons exhibit gallery, Marcus stood surrounded by systems he had spent years explaining to tourists. As the ship's historian, he knew the theory of how these ancient weapons operated, the loading mechanisms, targeting sequences, and firing procedures. Now theory was becoming deadly practice. Weapons control acknowledges. Wei reported. Marcus says the rail guns need 3 minutes to cool down before they can fire again at full power. The ship shuddered as the void-borne vessels launched a coordinated attack. Energy beams struck the Resilient from 3 different angles. Alarms wailed as the old ship absorbed damage. Hull breach on Deck 4, reported Ling, now at damage control. Emergency barriers holding. Elena gripped the command rail. Status. The armor plating is absorbing more than it should. Sophia's voice came over the comm system. These old ships were built with layers of physical armor, not just energy shields. The void-borne weapons are designed to penetrate modern defenses, not 20 centimeters of titanium composite. Another blast rocked the ship. A support beam crashed down near the command deck's entrance. Elena barely had time to shout a warning before it pinned 2 crew members. She rushed to help, lifting the beam while others pulled the injured to safety. "We can't keep this up forever," she muttered, wiping blood from a cut on her forehead. Sophia's voice crackled over the comms. "Commander, I've been analyzing their attack patterns. Their weapons are timed to the millisecond, perfectly coordinated." "Meaning?" "It has to be AI-guided. And if it's a predictive algorithm, it's probably calibrated for modern defensive systems." Elena's eyes widened as she understood. "But the Resilient doesn't fight like a modern ship." "Exactly. We're analog in a digital war." "What are you suggesting?" "Randomize everything. Manual control on all systems. No predictable patterns." Elena turned to her crew. "You heard her. Disengage all automated targeting. We're doing this old school." As the void-borne ships began another attack run, the Resilient responded with a chaotic defense that no algorithm could predict. Railguns fired at irregular intervals. Point defense systems activated in seemingly random sequences. The massive ship maneuvered in lurching, unpredictable ways that would have failed any modern tactical simulation. One of the void-borne ships moved too close, expecting the Resilient to follow standard evasive protocols. Instead, Elena ordered a full thruster burn directly toward it, a maneuver so reckless that no modern tactical system would have permitted it. The ancient ship's reinforced prow slammed into the void-borne vessel, physically ramming it. The alien ship spun away, its sleek form now crumpled along one side. The third void-borne vessel hesitated, then began to withdraw. "They're retreating," Wei announced, disbelief in her voice. A ragged cheer went up from the command deck. Elena allowed it for a moment before raising her hand for quiet. "Damage report," she ordered. "Multiple hull breaches, but integrity is at 70%, replied Ling from damage control. "Life support stable. We've got injuries but no fatalities." The civilian convoy. All ships accounted for. They'd gained significant distance during the engagement. Elena nodded. "Maintain pursuit course and get repair teams." "Commander," Wei interrupted, her face pale as she listened to her headset. "I'm receiving distress calls from New Eden. The Voidborn. They'd broken through the orbital defenses. There are still thousands of civilians on the surface." Elena stared at the tactical display. The main evacuation route led away from New Eden toward safety, but behind them, their home was burning. "The convoy has momentum," Sophia said quietly, having made her way to the command deck. "They'll reach the jump point with or without us." Elena looked around at her crew, historians and tour guides who had just fought an alien force to a standstill with museum pieces. No one spoke, but she could read the determination in their eyes. "Turn us around," she ordered. "We're going back." Legacy of Steel. The Resilient moved through space like an ancient predator, its massive hull now bearing the scars of battle. As they approached New Eden's orbit, the devastation became clear. Orbital platforms burned, defense satellites drifted as lifeless husks, and the once beautiful blue-green planet now bore angry red wounds where void-borne weapons had struck the surface. Receiving multiple distress signals, Wei reported, her voice tight. Most concentrated around the southern continent's evacuation centers. Elena studied the tactical display. 5 void-borne ships orbited the planet, methodically targeting what remained of the ground-based defenses. "They haven't noticed us yet," Marcus observed. "They will soon enough," Elena replied. She turned to her crew, who waited in tense silence. "I won't lie to you. What we're about to attempt is beyond reckless, but there are thousands of people down there who won't survive without our help." "What's the plan, Commander?" asked Rajiv, who had come up from engineering. Elena gestured to the tactical display. "We engage the void-born ships, draw them away from the planet, and hold them off long enough for the remaining evacuation ships to escape." "And then?" Sophia asked quietly. Elena met her gaze steadily. "Then we do what we can." She activated the ship-wide communication system. "This is Commander Reyes to all hands, battle stations, and if anyone is still keeping a journal of the Resilience history, today's entry should read, 'The old ship remembers. The Resilient accelerated toward New Eden, its ancient engines pushing to maximum output.'" As they closed distance, Elena ordered all power diverted to the forward shields and weapons. "Target the nearest void-born ship," she commanded. "Full spread of rail guns and missiles. Fire as soon as we're in range." The Resilient announced its arrival with a devastating barrage of kinetic weapons. The void-born ship, caught by surprise, took multiple hits before its systems could respond. The alien vessel listed to one side, venting atmosphere. "We have their attention," Wei reported grimly as the remaining 4 void-born ships broke orbit and moved to intercept. Elena nodded. "That was the easy part. Now we run. Set course away from the evacuation centers, full speed." The Resilient turned and accelerated, drawing the void-born pursuit away from the planet. Behind them, the alien ships gave chase, their superior speed gradually closing the gap. "They'll be in weapons range in 3 minutes, Marcus reported from Tactical. "Prepare for evasive maneuvers," Elena ordered, "and get me a direct channel to the evacuation centers." The face of Colonel Maya Santos, New Eden Defense Force, appeared on the main screen. Her uniform was torn and smoke filled the background. "Commander Reyes, what the hell are you doing back here?" "Creating a diversion. How many people do you still have planetside?" "About 15,000 at the southern evacuation center. We have ships, but the Voidborn have been picking them off as they attempt orbit. They're chasing us now. Get your people off the ground, Colonel. You've got a clear shot." Santos nodded grimly. "Understood. And Commander, thank you." The transmission ended as the first Voidborn energy beams lanced toward the Resilient. The old ship shuddered under the impact. "Evasive pattern Delta," Elena called. "Bring up secondary shields." The Resilient executed a series of maneuvers that would have torn a modern ship apart, the old hull groaning under stresses it was never designed to endure, but somehow withstanding. Rail guns fired continually, forcing the pursuing Voidborn to break formation. "Commander, we've got problems in engineering," Rajiv reported. "The main reactor's overheating. We never designed it to run at full military output for this long." "How much time do we have?" 20 minutes, maybe less, before we have to shut down or risk a breach." Elena's mind raced. They needed more time to allow the evacuation ships to escape, but the Resilient was reaching its limits. "Sophia, what about the museum itself? Any of those exhibits we could use?" There was a pause before Sophia's excited voice came through. "The Proxima Centauri exhibition. Commander, it includes a full-scale replica of a mining explosive from the old asteroid belts. Is it functional?" "It's not supposed to be, but with some modifications, yes." "Make it happen," Elena ordered. As the Resilient continued its desperate flight, drawing the Voidborn further from New Eden, Sophia led a team to repurpose the exhibition pieces. Meanwhile, the ship took more hits, each one further straining its ancient systems. "Hull breach on Deck 7, reported Ling. "Emergency barriers failing. We're venting atmosphere." "Seal off that section," Elena commanded. "Reroute emergency power." A massive blast rocked the ship, sending several crew members tumbling across the command deck. A support beam collapsed, crushing equipment, and narrowly missing Y at communications. Direct hit to the starboard engine assembly, Rajiv reported. We're losing power. Maneuvering thrusters at 40%. Alina gripped the command rail. Status of the evacuation. Wei checked her console. First wave of ships breaking orbit now. They need another 15 minutes to clear the gravity well. Commander, Sophia's voice came through, breathless. We've modified the mining explosive. It's ready. What's the yield? Enough to create a significant electromagnetic pulse. It might disrupt the void-borne targeting systems, at least temporarily. It wasn't much, but it was something. Deploy it, Alina ordered. The Resilient released what appeared to be debris from its rear cargo bay, fragments of exhibition pieces concealing the improvised device. As the void-borne ships passed through the field of debris, Sophia detonated the explosive. A silent flash erupted in space, followed by a wave of electromagnetic energy that washed over the pursuing ships. For a moment, the energy weapons fire ceased as the alien vessels struggled to recalibrate. It worked, Marcus exclaimed. Their weapons are offline. Not for long, Alina cautioned. Wei, status of the evacuation. Second wave launching now. 8 minutes until they're clear. 8 minutes they didn't have. The Resilient was failing, systems shutting down across all decks. The reactor warning had progressed from yellow to red. And the void-borne ships were already recovering, their weapons coming back online. Alina made her decision. All hands, prepare for emergency evacuation. Get the civilian refugees to the escape pods. Commander, Rajiv questioned. We're going to buy those evacuation ships their 8 minutes, Rajiv. But not all of us need to stay for that. Understanding dawned on his face. The reactor. Alina nodded. If we overload it and get close enough to the void-borne formation, that would destroy the Resilient, Marcus protested. The Resilient died decades ago when they turned it into a museum, Alina replied quietly. Today, it's being reborn as what it always was, a warship defending humanity. She activated the ship-wide comm. This is Commander Reyes. All civilian personnel and non-essential crew to escape pods immediately. This is not a drill. She paused. It has been my honor to serve with all of you. As evacuation alarms sounded throughout the ship, Alina turned to her command crew. You should go. I can handle this alone. One by one, they shook their heads. With respect, Commander, Wei said, we're staying. Someone needs to keep communications open with the evacuation fleet. And someone needs to make sure the engines don't fail before we reach the target, added Rajiv. Besides, Marcus said with a grim smile, a historian should be present to record the Resilient's final chapter. Alina felt a surge of pride as she looked at these civilians who had become warriors. Very well. Set course directly for the void-borne formation. All power to engines. The Resilient accelerated toward the alien ships, which had regrouped and were preparing to resume their attack on New Eden. In engineering, Sophia worked feverishly to bypass the reactor safeguards, preparing for the final overload. Evacuation pods away, reported Wei. All civilians clear of the ship. Status of the planetary evacuation, Alina asked. Final wave launching now. 7 minutes to safety. 7 minutes. They needed to hold the void-borne attention for just 7 more minutes. The void-borne are hailing us, Wei said suddenly, surprised. They're transmitting in standard Federation frequencies. Put it through, Alina ordered. A harsh, mechanical voice filled the command deck. Human vessel, your resistance is purposeless. Your technology is obsolete. Your tactics are predictable. Surrender now. Alina leaned toward the communication pickup. This is Commander Alina Reyes of the Solar System Vessel Resilient. Perhaps you've noticed. Obsolete doesn't mean ineffective. And as for predictable, she nodded to Rajiv. Show them what an ancient warship can do. The Resilient surged forward, remaining weapons firing in a continuous barrage. The void-borne scattered, clearly not expecting such an aggressive move from a badly damaged vessel. Reactor at critical levels, Sophia reported from engineering. 2 minutes to overload. Evacuation ships, Elena asked. 5 minutes to safety, Wei replied. Not enough time. They needed to buy more. Sophia, can you give us one more weapon? Anything at all? There was a pause before Sophia responded. There's the museum's collection of ancient nuclear torpedoes. They're deactivated, but the casings still contain trace radioactive material. If we eject them toward the Voidborn and detonate them with our point defense systems, it won't destroy them, Elena said, understanding. No, but it will create enough radiation to blind their sensors. They might lose track of the evacuation ships. Do it. The Resilient released its final weapons, museum pieces never meant to see combat again, and detonated them in a sphere around the ship. The resulting radiation cloud enveloped both the Resilient and the nearest Voidborn vessels. Sensor contact lost with the evacuation ships, Wei reported. The Voidborn can't see them either. Reactor reaching terminal levels. Sophia's voice came through, now calm and resigned. 1 minute remaining. Elena stood straight on the command deck of the dying ship, set a collision course with the largest Voidborn vessel. The Resilient moved through the radiation cloud like a ghost, bearing down on the Voidborn flagship. The alien ship, its sensors compromised, detected the threat too late. Impact in 30 seconds, Rajiv reported. It's been an honor, Elena said to her crew. As the Resilient closed the final distance, Elena thought she felt the ship respond, not just to the commands given, but to the spirit of its crew. The ancient warship, reborn in its final moments, fulfilled its original purpose, protecting humanity against impossible odds. The Resilient slammed into the Voidborn flagship just as its reactor went critical. The explosion tore through both vessels, creating a chain reaction that engulfed the nearby alien ships. From the evacuation vessels now safely beyond New Eden's gravity well, the explosion appeared as a brief, brilliant star, a final salute from a ship that had refused to be forgotten. 3 months later, Admiral Tanaka stood before the assembled representatives of the Federation Council. Behind him, a holographic display showed the schematics of a new warship class. Ladies and gentlemen, I present the Rice-class destroyer. Drawing on the lessons of the SSV Resilient, these vessels combine modern technology with the physical resilience and redundant systems of first expansion-era ships. He gestured to the design. Layered titanium composite armor, kinetic weapons alongside energy-based systems, manual override capabilities for all automated systems, and a memorial plaque on each command deck bearing the words, "The old ship remembers." A council member raised her hand. Admiral, the Voidborn have withdrawn from Federation space, but they'll return. Will these ships be enough? No single weapon or ship will win this war, Tanaka replied. But the Resilient taught us a valuable lesson. Sometimes, to face the future, we must remember our past. As the council debated, a museum curator on Earth carefully arranged the new exhibit. Behind protective glass lay fragments of hull plating, recovered from the debris field near New Eden. A simple plaque told the story of a museum ship that had saved thousands of lives and changed the course of a war. The final line read, "They laughed at the museum ship until it became humanity's greatest weapon."